Okay, so that's the big picture, okay? And how you define the healthy organization really, it depends on the type of organization you have, your type of business or industry. It depends on what you've been doing. So let's just take a look at that, how you can actually chart your course down this path. And there's three things that I'd like us to focus on for the next few minutes here. Recognize that this is, in a sense, it's an open-ended journey. So if you talk to somebody like Isidore Sharp, who just actually stepped down as the CEO of the Four Seasons, and you say, you've won all kinds of awards for having just, truly spectacular workplace, so you're there. And he'll say, no, we're not. I mean, it's continuously a challenge because the environment changes, the market changes, our workforce changes. And so, it's a challenge. Our journey is continuous. And that's the point here. That whether you're starting in the middle or, feel that you've really had a lot of successes, this is really a continuous upward spiral. And that's the way to look at it. It's not a goal you set and achieve and say, we've done it. The second thing is that it's really important to design your own improvement path. And what certainly can be helpful would be some general guidelines and knowing what other organizations have done, but there is no recipe. There is no, here's 12 steps to baking the perfect brownie approach to doing this. The third thing is that it will only happen if each of you, you're motivated, you're here. So I'm going to call all of you change agents. This will only happen if each of you take action. And even in small ways. I don't believe in Big Bang theories of organizational change. I don't believe in these theories that say, organizations change radically in a kind of a revolutionary way, and, you can be one thing one day and a different thing the next day. Most times, successful organizational change is chipping away, it's incremental, and it's people, lots of people doing some small things that add up to a really big thing that is the change. And so that's where you really come in. So let's look at your organization. And I'm going to refer you, you've heard from Jody about some tools and also from Martin. I mean, this is another free online tool. It's on my book's website, and you can see the URL there. It's the title of the book, Creating Healthy Organizations. And it's really an organization development tool. So there's 25 questions, and they're 5-point agree-disagree questions, and you fill it out online, and you get an email that gives you your scores and gives you an interpretation, how to interpret the scores. So I've only given you 5 of the questions just as samples, and I thought it would be really interesting just to have a quick show of hands for some of these questions. So again, the response scale is 1 to 5. 1 is strongly disagree, 5 is strongly agree, 3 is neither. So let's look at the first one. How many would strongly agree? So that's 5 on a 1 to 5 scale. How many would strongly agree that working relationships in their organization are based on mutual respect? Put your hands up. Strongly agree. Okay. How many would agree? That's 4 on a 5-point scale. Okay. So, this is the kind of diagnostic approach that when you talk about, if you're on a health and safety committee or a wellness committee, each person can do this assessment. And then you can talk about your results, and it will really kind of give you that. It's looking at things through the organizational lens. Okay, let's go down to the fourth one. How many would strongly agree there's a sense of community in the workplace? It's hard for me to see everybody, but for the virtual viewers, I see at least 5 or 6 hands. That's great. So it'd be really interesting. We don't have time. It'd be really interesting to hear how you've cultivated that sense of community. And I also think it's interesting that one of Martin's major initiatives is Neighbor at Work. That's community. This idea that we need to be neighbors to each other. And different places call it different things. I mean, some organizations, like, if I run focus groups, I often hear people saying, what's great about this place? It's like family. That's another metaphor that's used. So that's the kind of, that describes the relationships, it describes the culture, it describes the sense of support, which as Jody told us, is so vital for reducing those psychological risks. So that just kind of gives you a flavor. And when you score this, you basically, there's 3 different sort of categories that you could arrive in, depending on your score for the whole organization. But there's opportunities, regardless of which of these categories, to do more. So if you're getting started, let's say you've got low scores, you disagree with a lot of the statements, they don't really apply to your organization, then what you need to do is to talk with your colleagues, or again, if you're on an OHS or a wellness committee, identify where the appropriate starting point is. What are we already doing that we can build on? If you're in that sort of gaining momentum, and I detect there's quite a number in this audience who are in this category, then it's really looking at how you keep building on those strengths and how you generate more momentum, getting more people involved, linking to other initiatives so that those people performance connections become more visible for everybody in the organization. And then finally, if you score really high, you will be the first to admit that your challenge is maintaining that level. So new employee orientation, you want to make sure that they really, well, first of all, you're recruiting based on culture, if you're there, number 1. Number 2, new employee orientation is very much centered around really immersing people in that culture, because that's where the values come into play. That's where, those behaviors that really make up that healthy, vibrant work environment are found. So let's look now at the actions that you as an individual can take. But I'm curious, how many of you are on a health and safety committee? Great. Okay. How many of you are on a wellness committee? Okay. So you're more than just a single person. I mean, you can be an influencer in terms of those committees, which is great. And I think a real advantage. So the first thing is to look at what you're already doing. And I would strongly encourage you to say, this is not a new program. In fact, this isn't a program at all. Rather, how can we move further down our path to being a truly healthier organization by just creating stronger links and integrating some of the things we're doing now. Now, I just gave you some examples earlier about, if you've got learning organization goals, that clearly links in with anything related to health and to health promotion. Safety culture. A lot of businesses in this province in the oil patch are really strong on safety culture. Now, what I find interesting is that the discussions that happen in those safety culture training sessions have to do with listening, with two-way communication, with no fear of reprisal. If you see something that's wrong, you need to make it a habit, to step forward and say, this is what's going on. Well, all of that applies to the whole organization and to everything about a person's job in a healthy organization. So there's huge connections across that. If you look at anything to do with leadership development, training, talent management, simply ask the question. You've invested heavily in all these training and development programs. To what extent are you enabling, equipping your future leaders with what both Martin and Jody have referred to, emotional intelligence? Which is it's pretty basic common sense stuff. But, just helping people understand that things that they already know and may not have associated with being a senior manager actually are vital, like good listening skills. And it's so basic. I got to tell you a story about this. I used to teach, I was a prof at the University of Alberta for many years, and I used to teach engineering students, undergraduate engineering students. The one required social science course. It was on work and organizations. And so we were, talking about leadership, because they all want to be managers, of course. And anyway, we were talking about the importance of communication in workplaces. And there's a back row. They were reading The Sun, eating their lunch. Some of them were sleeping. And but But all of a sudden, so we're talking about the importance, stuff on emotional intelligence, and also talking about the importance of listening and active listening. You know, I was trying to give them some sense of, like, these are life skills that apply. So all of a sudden, one guy at the back, I'm sure he was asleep, he kind of sits bolt upright and he says, "That's what my girlfriend keeps telling me I need to do." And the whole class got it, right? Like, these are skills that are life skills. And building them into your training and development and just making them a seamless part of how the business operates, that's a healthy organization. And it's not a stretch to imagine doing that.